Welcome to another Fantasy Goodfellas video where we talk about the top 30 wide receiver rankings for week 6. You ready?
Those Fantasy Goodfellas.
Boom, boom, boom. Rolling on the field.
Those Fantasy Goodfellas.
All right, before we get started, let me quickly go over how this works. These are not our rankings. We are going to judge Fantasy Pro predictions. So let's jump right into it. Number 1, Puka Nacua at the Baltimore Ravens. Puka is a stud. He's going to have no problems staying in the top 30. Will he be the top wide receiver in week 1? I'm not sure, but if you look at his receiving yards, it looks like out of the three of the 5 weeks, he has surpassed 100 yards. For touchdowns, he has gotten almost 3 out of 5 weeks, a touchdown. At number 2, Amon-Ra St. Brown at the Kansas City Chiefs. There's a lot of opportunity going against the Kansas City Chiefs. The question remains is there always too many weapons? And I think that definitely happens. Here you got Sam Laporta, 92 yards. You got 100 yards. But look, Isaac had 12 yards and a TD. And all those running backs definitely get some catches. So the question is, are there too many targets? Number 3, Jaxon Smith-Njigba at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jigba. And the thing about Jaxon Smith-Njigba is he's lighting it up of a late. Here had 132 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. You got Cooper Kupp back there. And so let's just take a quick look at that offense. 341 yards by Sam Darnold. That is impressive. Number 4, you got George Pickens at the Carolina Panthers. That was a high-scoring game last week. Here, Pickens had 57 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. But the question remains, how will it fare when CeeDee Lamb returns? Number 5, you got Jamar Chase at the Green Bay Packers. He had an incredible week 5, 110 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. That is with Jake Browning. So can they keep it going in Joe Burrow's absence? At number 6, Emeka Egbuka. And he's going against the San Francisco 49ers. He had an incredible offensive performance. Look at that, 7 receptions on 7 targets. That was good for 163 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. He was our top ranked wide receiver in week 5. At number 7, Davante Adams at the Baltimore Ravens. Here, this is where I already think the rankings might go astray. You got Davante Adams. Here, you have Puka Nacua was the 8th ranked wide receiver. You got Davante Adams, the 27th ranked wide receiver. But this week, they're already going to put him and 2 receivers in the top 10. I'm not a big fan of that. They'd have to have a hugely explosive game, but I'm still very doubtful. Number 8, Jaylen Waddle at the Los Angeles Chargers. Here, Waddle had an incredible game. They lost. The morale might be a little questionable, but now that Tyreek Hill is gone, look at this. Barely in the not doing too well, and boom, he was the 5th best wide receiver in week 5. At number 9, you got Rome Odunze at the Washington Redskins. Rome was on a bye. Here, they had 69 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. If you want to look at his ranks from week to week, don't worry about that rank the 5th week. So he's been in the top 15. He's been in the top 30 every time he's suited up. So he should be doing really well. Maybe that's a little high for him at number 9. At number 10, Keenan Allen at the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins give up some yardage. So Keenan Allen, all you needed to do is score a touchdown. He's certainly worthy of that. And that closes out our top 10. On to 11. McMillan versus the Dallas Cowboys. He had a standout game. I like the way he played. If you see him, he's playing hard. But look at that. They got 5 wide receivers. They're distributing the ball. Look, 5, 8, 10 different people touched the ball from the quarterback. So not a lot of yards, but definitely spreading the ball out. So somebody should have an explosive game. Number 12, Deebo Samuel at the Baltimore Ravens. Here, we're going to update that image, but he had 96 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. Looks like Jaden Daniels can lead an offense, and so with him back, anything's possible. Number 13, Jakobi Meyers versus the Tennessee Titans. Here, Jakobi Meyers, he did 32 receiving yards, quiet game. If we look at that overall performance, 228 passing yards from Geno Smith. Trey Tucker was supposed to have a good game. A little questionable. That whole offense just definitely took a step back. Number 14, Quentin Johnston at the Miami Dolphins. The problem here is that whole offense fell apart after Johnston fumbled the ball, and it didn't look good the rest of the game. He had a couple grabs that could have done well, could have given him some yardage, bumped him up a little higher, but that fumble cost that team. But he's still a good receiver. At number 15, Garrett Wilson versus the Denver Broncos. He had 71 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown, and he was good for 12th. He's a dynamic wide receiver. I don't see any problems there. At number 16, Courtland Sutton at the New York Jets. Sutton had an explosive game, 99 receiving yards. That was probably one of the best performances other than week 3. And then he didn't get into the end zone, but he did. He is doing well. If we look at points week to week, that's what it looks like. Keep in mind, all our stats, we have the most dynamic stats of any fantasy football channel. Just pay attention, we'll show you these stats. At number 17, Drake London versus the Buffalo Bills. They were on a bye in week 5. In week 4, Drake London's been warming up. Look at that. So week 4, he's explosive. Will he return to week 4 in week 6? Hopefully. Number 18, you got A.J. Brown at the New York Giants. The problem with A.J. Brown is he's disappeared all season. Having him in the top 30 is beyond me. We know he's a great receiver. He's just not putting it together this season. Number 19, Zay Flowers versus the Los Angeles Rams. Now, if you look at Zay Flowers last week, 72 receiving yards. If you want to look at what he's done all season, in week 5, he just got a long catch. He had 5 targets, 5 catches, and this is what he's done all season, 377 receiving yards. So at number 20, DK Metcalf versus the Cleveland Browns. Metcalf didn't play in week 5. In week 4, 126 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown. They can keep it going. I think that offense is warming up. At number 21, Michael Pittman Jr. versus the Arizona Cardinals. Here, Pittman was playing well. If you want to look at all his rankings all week, 7th, 10th, 22, 21, he's obviously worthy of a top 30 ranking. At number 22, Xavier Worthy versus the Detroit Lions. You know, he looks kind of banged up. So if you watch that last game, looked like a little unstable. So they got a lot of receivers. They got Rashee Rice coming back. So I don't know if we're going to see Worthy in this top ranking, in the top 30. This is questionable. At 23, Brian Thomas Jr. versus the Seattle Seahawks. You know, they have a great comeback victory. So that offense is cooking. They're 4-1 on the season. So I like what they got going. It looks like they're turning the corner. So that is a fine and decent ranking. At 24, Chris Olave versus the New England Patriots. if you don't catch all the games, this is where going through some stats and seeing what they're doing is helpful. Here, if you want to look at what he's doing, he's about 55 yards on average. Let's see his TDs, only one TD. So I look at this as a little stretch for Chris Olave. At 25, Ladd McConkey at the Miami Dolphins. Ladd got into the end zone. That offense struggled a little bit in the second half. So having two receivers in the top 30 from the same team that's kind of underperforming a little bit is a little surprising. At 26, Marvin Harrison Jr. at the Indianapolis Colts, 98 receiving yards. He did that on 4 out of 5 catches. Here, I like to look at this. He had a long 43-yard catch, and then you take that away is about 55 yards on 3 catches. So he's definitely getting the average is pretty high. Number 27, Chris Godwin Jr. versus the San Francisco 49ers. Chris Godwin, if you look at what he's doing all season, he just came back. He's 2 games back into the season. But, there's a lot of weapons there. And with Emeka just coming on of late, I don't expect Godwin to do good this week either. At 28, Stephon Diggs at the New Orleans Saints. Stephon had a great game. I like his route running. His run after the catch was extremely well. Again, a lot can happen here. Is Drake May the quarterback here? He definitely did that, led the team to a victory. But, it's going to matter. Is Stephon Diggs going to get those yardage every week? Probably not. Is Drake May going to throw a touchdown? So I think Stephon Diggs is going to need to score to be in that top 30. At number 29, Ricky Pearsall at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Here, we'll kind of take into consideration they had a bye. So he surpassed 100 receiving yards 2 out of the 4 weeks he's played. And he has not gotten into the end zone. So he's right on that bubble, so it can go either way. At number 30, Devontae Smith at the New York Giants. The problem here is this is not particularly an offensive passing team, and to have these dynamic receivers, expect them to catch it is they're just not a passing team. So they'll spread it out. You might have somebody do well, but unfortunately, that is not always the case. But that is your top 30 predictions. This is actually Fantasy Pros predictions. This isn't ours. So the problem with that is, don't hate me, hate Fantasy Pros. We like to commentate on what other people do. So don't forget to like and subscribe for the best stats and graphics of any fantasy football channel.